Hi, welcome to the Remember to Live podcast. I'm your host, Corinne Canty, a recovering corporate exec, coach, yogi, play advocate, mom, and all-around life enthusiast. I've walked the path of burnout and missed opportunities. But here's the thing, I found my way back to living. And I want to take you on that journey too. Tune in weekly for life design tips, authentic stories, and inspiring conversations with those who've chosen to live without regrets. Let's ditch the shoulds and have-tos and remember to live now. So get cozy, grab your favorite warm drink, and let's embrace our big, full, no regrets lives together. In today's episode, we have Jennifer Yepez-Blundell joining us. I got to know Jennifer during my last corporate role, and we have continued to work together in consulting gigs, and I've been lucky enough to support her on her journey as her coach. Jennifer is a seasoned marketing strategist with a passion for building diverse and inclusive environments. Her unique background in multicultural communications expertise informs her data-driven approach to tackling systemic issues in media, marketing, and workplaces. An ex-collegiate athlete with a competitive spirit, she entered into the startup world to co-found Drafted, a Latina sports culture media tech company igniting community and generating insights that have never been touched before. Jennifer's passion for change runs deep as a mom to two young daughters. We dive deep into our journeys with self-discovery, self-care, and living a life that is true to who we are. Let's dig in. Welcome, 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 my friend. So excited to have you here today on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And so as you're very familiar with, I like to start out all of my episodes the same way I start out my coaching, with bringing us present so we can be here in this moment with each other and experience it together. So let's just take a moment to take a deep breath, fully bring ourselves here and get in our body so we can share this experience together. Okay. So I also like to start out every episode knowing what my friends are drinking for their warm, comforting drink. I have my almond milk matcha in my little love cup, which I really
love
love
that
a lot.
cute. I have some elderflower and spice tea in my little Dolly Parton 9 to 5 mug.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's cute.
Oh, I love elderflower. That sounds delightful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have known each other for a while now in many capacities. And
Yes.
so I am very excited to get into this conversation with you today, because I think your journey has been amazing and inspiring. And we've, in some ways, been on parallel journeys, because we actually met while I was still in corporate in my last official corporate role. And so you were there through that whole experience with me, and what it was like for me to have to make the decision and become a caretaker and all the things. And you've been on a journey of your own since then as well. So I would love to just get started with you sharing just a little bit more about your journey in kind of taking a leap into more of living the life that you want to live, and what drives you to create the change and keep going in that journey, because it can be hard. It can be difficult to
It can be
choose
incredibly,
ourselves.
yeah, it's incredibly difficult. And, I think you had a lot to do with the leaping as well. And, you just said that we're on parallel paths, but I even feel like you're ahead of me because you've been my guide the whole time. I feel like a very strong pillar in my journey. But yeah, taking that leap, I mean, for me, it started, there's a couple of pivotal times in my life. I can pinpoint 3 times in my life where I've leapt and completely have changed, the trajectory of my life. But this last one, about 3 years ago, of choosing to really heal and to find my life's purpose. And that really started 3 years ago. And it's been a journey ever since, and just a learning curve, but really excited to see how far I've come. And it really is just taking it day by day and designing your days to reflect the life that you want. And that's something that you've taught me and I've taken in full stride of, you can't expect to have this wonderful, extraordinary life if your days are a mess. So really being methodical and planning out your days because your life is just a bunch of days strung together.
Yeah. So what when you think back to that most recent leap or pivot, what was kind of going on that made you know that you needed to do something different, that it was time to take action?
Yeah, what wasn't going on, Green? There was a bunch, right? I'm a mom of 2 small girls, and if you're looking about, like, 3 years ago, I mean, they were very much in the baby and toddler stage. I was going I left corporate, so I was starting my own solo at the time, solo entrepreneurship, consulting. It was during a pandemic. We had just moved
Mhm.
to a new town, so I didn't know my community, I didn't know my neighbors, so no real support. And just feeling very low and very unhealthy, in all aspects of my life, from physical activity to what I was eating to the amounts of, alcohol I was putting in my body. It was just all unhealthy, and I knew I needed to make a change. And it's one of those times, as I'm looking back and I'm more connected with myself, I don't even know what that voice in my head was, or if it was a
Mm.
moment, but it was just something I was like, nope, this is not how it's going to go down. This is not how I'm going to model life for my kids. I am not going to live a long, fulfilling, productive life if I keep down this path. It's time to make a change.
Yeah, and a lot of my clients when I'm coaching, they find me at that point when they get the feeling like, there's more. I know I
Yeah.
need to make a change. My body's starting to talk to me and tell me things. I've spent years ignoring those whispers,
Yep.
but they don't know what to do. Like they don't know the first step to take or how to even get started. So they think about it and they know it and they talk about it, but sometimes it takes years to take any first step towards figuring it out.
Absolutely.
What was kind of your first step that helped you begin to walk down the path?
That first step for me was getting my mental clarity right. Again, I was just coming off having my second, and I had postpartum depression with both of my daughters.
Mm-hmm.
And so by that second time, I knew, okay, this is really not normal. This is not correct. I need to go see my doctor. And from there, I did make the choice to be on medication. I was very concerned. I was still nursing, so it was a very low dosage. And I walked myself back into therapy, just again, needing that outlet and somebody to help me cope and deal with, okay, now I'm a mom. This is a
Yeah.
global pandemic. What am I
Yeah.
doing? I think everybody was feeling that, but just
Mm-hmm.
making that conscious choice to say, okay, I need to talk this out. I need to get balanced. Um, and then it was finding you as well, right? And reconnecting with you and saying, I'm a very big planner and very strategic. So I need help. I can't see my life. What are those steps? How do I break that up into digestible pieces to start creating the life that I wanted? So those were the initial steps that I took.
Yeah, I love that because many times, especially as women, when we're moms and building our careers and taking care of the household and wives and sisters and daughters and all the things, we're there for everyone else and we're doing
Yeah.
all the things. We want to take care of everyone else. But sometimes it can be really hard to ask for help or
Mhm.
admit that we need help because we want to do all the things. We want to carry all the plates and juggle all the things and be these super people that really just don't exist. So I think it's honorable that you were able to say, no, I need the help and find the resources and the tools that were going to guide you in the different stages of your life. It took me a long, long time to ever even consider therapy because in my
Mhm.
culture, you just go and do. You don't talk about it, you sweep it under the rug and you keep going. And
Exactly.
once I finally learned, like, oh, I can't see my own face. I need help. I need mirrors and got a therapist and got a coach. I was like, why hadn't I done this like 15 years ago? Life would be so different. But, we all are on our journeys and we're all in our own time finding these things. And so as you started to get the help and learn the tools, what are some of the tools that you feel made the biggest impact to help you gain that clarity and figure out what you really want?
Yeah, tools, that's a great question because I think I'm still exploring what tools work well for me. finding support and a support system and a coach within you has just, again, there's just no words. It's just been life changing because you have also exposed me to tools that I take and I'm taking and I'm running with. And I'm like, wow, I never would have found this or considered this, right? Like meditation, some of the guided meditations you and I have done. I mean, just the things that I felt and I've seen within those deep meditative states have just been mind blowing. Now, can I accomplish that by myself in a solo meditation? Still practicing, but that's the beauty of it, right? It's a
Yes.
practice.
Yes.
Um, and then just the tool of health and body movement. That's something that's very important to me that I've incorporated within my daily life for the last 2 years, and that has made a tremendous difference in my overall health and mental capacity and energy levels. And then just kind of going back to my ancestral tools too, right? I'm Mexican American, and trying to look at, what did my ancestors use for self-healing, whether it's scents or cleansing or activities, and just going down that path and exploring to see what I can incorporate into my daily life that I can use to help me on my path.
Yeah, I think that's so important in our self-discovery and personal development
Yeah.
journey is if you think about our, modern day where it's just go, 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 hustle, hustle, grind, work, 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 sleep and do it again. And technology has taken over so much, but we forget about the ancient things
Mhm.
that our ancestors have used from the beginning of time that helped and worked. And we sometimes forget about our connection to those things and what that can mean to us and how that can get us back to center. And I think that that's not talked about a lot.
It's not, right? And it's forms of medicine as well. And then just looking at holistic body work too. Like,
Mhm.
in the last year or so, started seeing, a holistic chiropractor. And I'm one that I know I keep a lot of my stress and traumas locked into my body in
Mhm.
certain areas and certain parts of my body, like my shoulder, my hip. And I know that there's something trapped in there, and
Yes.
exploring what different kind of body works, whether those releases or chiropractor, or just stretching those areas to let go.
Yeah, somatic tools make such a difference. And it took me a long time to recognize that all the things that I was ignoring, so to speak, or thinking I was being strong and
Yeah,
like, I'm strong. I don't need to cry about that. I just keep it moving, just take care of things. Like they do, they get stuck.
they
And
do.
eventually they're going to come out. And it's usually not pretty when that happens. It's usually
No,
pretty
it's not.
painful. So I love that you brought up the fact that part of us being able to show up to and live the lives that we want to live is, listening to our bodies and taking care of our bodies. And I think getting present is probably the number one thing that we need to do to start is just can we get present with where we are? Can we pause for a moment and
Yeah.
get out of our heads regretting or worrying about the past and be having anxiety about the future, and we're constantly in the past or the future. How do we get present right now and
Yes.
see where we are right now and listen to what's happening right now and not miss the moments right now? I know we talked a lot over the last couple of years as your little girls are growing up, and we forget about our own moments, but sometimes as a mom that helps us remember, like, oh, there's moments I could be missing if I don't slow
Absolutely.
down and get present.
Yeah, it goes so fast. And you're right. I'm the biggest, recovering culprit of living in the past. Oh my gosh. And worrying about the future. I mean, that's been my MO since forever. And unlearning that has been so beautiful because you're right, especially with my kids being this little. If I could be with them, but not be present. And I'm
Mhm.
missing the magic, like literally them learning something new or figuring something out, and they look up at me, and if my head is down or I'm somewhere else or looking at my phone checking email, that moment's gone, and I
Yeah.
can't get those back. So just practicing being present over the last few years has been beautiful, and even within the last year getting really strong at that, it's very exciting.
Oh, yeah. I love that. And I think our kids are our biggest teachers.
Oh, for sure.
If
For
we slow
sure.
down and pay attention, they give us so much wisdom. And even now, my children are adults, but I learn so much from them every day, and they still demand my presence.
Yeah.
When I'm there, I still don't want to miss the moments. I don't want to miss the moments of their becoming as adults and
Mhm.
watching the magic of all the things that they're learning and navigating in this world as they figure out living the lives they want to live.
Yeah. I mean, becoming a mother completely changed my life and has made me a better person and has just put all of that junk in front of me that I need to take care of, that again, like you're right, that you ignore and you you
Mhm.
dismiss the messages. But these two little lives, that God has granted me. Wow. And I always thought I have to teach them. No, they're here on this earth to teach me. And it's just been a journey, and it's exciting. It's scary. It's scary as hell.
Yes,
But it's a beautiful thing.
it is. And I think the other thing about being a mother or a parent or just having someone you feel responsible for in your life, at least for me, and I know we've talked about this a little bit before, is there's a lot of things that I knew or I would feel in my body and my gut that I needed to do, but I wouldn't do it
Mhm.
for myself. But as my
Yeah.
daughter started getting older, I realized, oh, I don't want her to experience certain things. So that drove me to want to make changes in my life and to be the example, because I didn't have that example in my family. Like I didn't have the example of choosing yourself and building careers and being the type of woman that I want to become through the women in my family. They lived very different lives and very different generations. And
Mhm.
so as my daughter started growing up, I realized there's just certain ways of sacrifice and toxic support that we give to other people that I didn't want to see her do. And that
Yeah.
drove me to make a lot of changes in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. I always talk to my girls about being brave, right? Which means,
Hmm.
it's not that you are not scared. You have to do the thing and be scared and be okay with it. And I tell them all that all the time. And as I'm telling them, my tongue is bleeding because it's like, take your own advice, mom.
Yes. Yes.
And but again, it's the biggest teacher. I mean, we were just at this, extreme playground and this giant slide. And, one of my daughters is like, oh, I'm scared. I can't do it. And the little one is already up at the top. Right.
Hmm.
So it was one of those moments where she was like, I can do this. I can be brave. And it was just so beautiful to say because, she's telling herself this mantra
Oh,
that I've
yeah.
taught her. And then, it comes time for mom to do it. And I looked at my husband, I was like, I can't do this. And he's like, you better get up there because you just told your daughters you can do it, and I did it. And I was at the top of the slide by myself laughing, like, see, you can do hard
Yes, you
things.
can.
You can do hard things. But, it's just, yeah, you have to be the model of behavior that you want your kids to see. And that's something that I'm working on because for me and my personality, I feel like I go to the extreme of like perfectionism and that
Hmm.
I can't make mistakes.
Hmm.
So that's something that I'm also unlearning because I don't want to model that for my kids. I want them
Hmm.
to know that it's okay to be messy, it's okay to be unperfect and explore. And I don't want them to see mom as like this perfection, perfect pillar that we have to model because then I'm not doing them any favors either. So it's a balance. It definitely is a balance.
Yeah, and especially, um, I think that gets reinforced when you choose a corporate career as a woman of color.
Oh, yes.
We have to go above and beyond to even get our foot in the door, and we
Yep.
develop this sense of needing to be perfect and needing to
Yeah.
be all the things and wearing all these masks and showing up in certain ways. And I love how through your daughters you're recognizing like we need to do things a little different.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, who I always ask myself now I'm asking myself,
Yeah.
who am I worried like that I'm going to offend, right?
Mm,
If I achieve my highest self, right? Or
mm,
who am I worried that's going to tear me down? And I think you're right. As a woman of color and as a woman in general, I feel like somebody's always around the corner to tear us down if
Mhm.
we're operating at our highest self or reaching these unattainable, quote unquote, attainable goals. And we have to grapple with that and ask those questions. Like, no, just do it anyways. And sometimes that person, the boogeyman around the corner is not even real.
Yes.
And you don't know until you get there.
Yeah, lots of times we're applying our own pressure, and then there's also this element of responsibility or weight that we feel because many times we're a double only in the room. And if you
Yeah,
get in the room or you get that seat at the table, even if it doesn't feel aligned or feel right once you get there, we sometimes hold on to it because we know how hard it is for someone like us to get that spot.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've experienced that pretty much my whole life. I mean, the way I grew up in a very white, dominant, middle upper class area, being the only Latino, in schools in my neighborhood. I mean, it was just like me and my sister, and probably I can count on my one hand the other Latinos that were in my direct community. So feeling that being the only has been a part of, you know, my soft wiring, right?
Mhm.
And so it's just a matter of recognizing that and changing that wiring.
Yeah, and I think that's a good kind of segue to talk a little bit about the work that you're doing right now in what you're building with the company that you've co-founded, because I think not only does that align with you choosing what's in alignment with you and your joy and the impact that you want to make in the world, but it is being the change.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's great because I know one of the exercises that opened my eyes to was simply my numerology chart.
Mm,
What are you what's your soul's purpose? What's your path? What's your experience? What's your gifts? The gifts was a really big one for me. So when I see things like leadership and, standing up for change, standing up for others and being at the forefront for equity and justice, I was like, "Oh, this makes sense.
mm,
This is why, when I left corporate, I started consulting myself in inclusive marketing. That was the next natural step for me. But again, fighting for that representation in marketing narratives and media narratives to what I'm building now and drafted, is a Latina sports culture media company. I'm an ex-athlete. I've been an athlete my whole life. I played softball in college, I have a deep competitive spirit. I love sports, but there's a gaping hole in terms of seeing women as sports fans or seeing Latinas as
yes.
sports fans. How are we answering that, from top to bottom and making sure that we're celebrating and elevating our stories within the sports world? And it's just been amazing to grow that and to continue to grow that to see where it becomes. But it's very much tied back to what my gifts are and what my soul's purpose is.
Yeah, I love that. And because it's so aligned, that's the path you took. I think lots of
Yeah.
times I see on social media and in the news and different ways that people are starting to think, well, the only way I can live the life I want to live is I have to quit corporate or I have to
Hmm.
build a company and I don't want to be an entrepreneur. And I think it's less about which path you choose, whether it's, corporate 9 to 5 or entrepreneurship or whatever other journey you might take to make a living. It's more about living in alignment with
Yeah.
what what gives you the most joy and what makes you feel like you're making the most impact and the most meaning. And I know we've talked a lot about learning to align with our joy and follow the
Yeah.
joy. And you mentioned a little bit at the beginning of the conversation about designing our days. And we've worked a lot on that and getting away from the traditional, oh, my goal is to be a VP or a C-suite
Yeah.
or insert random title someone told you should have, or my goal is
Yep.
to make this salary because someone told me that's the salary you need to be happy. And I know you've done a lot of work in this area of how do I shift my mindset from all the shoulds that have been kind of
Yeah.
drilled in me to discovering what you discovered with, oh, I actually want to live in alignment with my gifts, and this is the path I want to take to do it.
Yeah, and you've taught me that. I mean, really, because I had very black and white structures of what corporate success or career or in equating that directly to life success and
Mhm.
happiness. Whatever seat I held in the workforce was a direct reflection of my capabilities, who I am, and my worth,
Mm.
which is just all bananas, right? And you really flipped that on its head and said, "Okay, where are you getting these shoulds from?"
Mhm.
Where does that come from? How do we look at that differently? And it can be this messy mix gray color that can be really beautiful. And oh, guess what? It's also a journey. So just because
Yes.
you're doing that right now, it doesn't mean you're going to be doing that for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
And you can still live in alignment if you have a corporate job, take on side projects, participate in your community or find joy, but it can be a journey. And so thank you for that, first of all. But you're right, and it's just going back to looking at what actually makes me happy, and if I
Mm.
have to do it for most of my day to earn a living, I better find joy out of it.
Yeah.
And that's, it's a process, and there's tools and exercises that you can do to help you discover that. And I'm so glad that I invested in myself to start figuring that out, because if I hadn't made that leap, I would probably still be very uneasy and lost.
Yeah. And one of the things that came up on your journey and that came up in my journey as well is as we start to uncover these things within ourselves and start to get clearer on what we want, then there's this phase of having to learn to trust yourself.
Oh gosh, yes.
And trust it. Like once you're starting to feel it and recognize what your intuition and your body is telling you, there's so much that we still have to unlearn to peel back and get to the trust. And
Yeah.
I'd love to talk a little bit about that because I feel it's still a work in progress for me.
Oh, for sure. Same here. The trusting of myself. And I laugh because it's so comical. Like, I've been doing this work for a while now, and it's like, Jen, when are you going to learn to 110% trust yourself? Because there's pockets and there's moments, and it's so beautiful. And then I go back into that self-doubt and not trusting. And it's just like, we're not going backwards, right?
Yes.
But that is something that I am still working on, is having the trust in myself, and also just like believing in my power source, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
something I do write. I journal and I write letters to myself of like, talking about figuring out my power source, what is going on that I'm not trusting myself in that moment, and like why. So writing it down really helps me so I can just visually see how I'm feeling. But I always joke that, once I trust myself 100% and find that power source, like, watch out, world, like,
Yeah.
it's over for you. It's gonna be amazing. But again, I think that's part of my soul's purpose. Like, what my soul is trying to teach me over each lifetime is that I need to find that power source and fully trust in myself.
Mm. Yes. And I think the topic of learning to fully trust ourselves and listen to ourselves goes hand in hand with demanding our worth and our
Mhm.
value. And um, I have so many women, both in corporate and in the entrepreneurship world that I am now in, that struggle with this, like
Yeah.
struggle with negotiating for the salary that they deserve because we always have to fight for it. It's not handed to us, struggling to charge what they're worth for their services because they're valuable. And I think that that goes hand in hand with trusting ourselves and
Absolutely.
not feeling like we have to prove something to everyone else, but knowing our innate value in the world.
Yeah, and I am the first in line to tell all of my friends, all of my girlfriends,
Yes.
"Girl, charge more, like, demand more." Like, "Oh my god, you can't take that for that amount of money, or, for that exchange."
Yes.
But yet when it comes to myself, I'm like, "Ooh, can I charge that?"
Yes. Yes. I'll go through the same thing. And it's a balance of, the self-doubt that creeps in, but then there's
Yeah,
also the balance of, but I just want to help. So
yeah,
we have this kind of almost guilt about charging what we're worth and not recognizing that when you're truly operating from source, as you say, and being of service, like it is an exchange, and you shouldn't be afraid to want to make money and be
Yeah.
wealthy, because when women have money, amazing things happen in the world. When
Yeah.
we have money and resources, we give back and we build things and we lift up communities, and I think it's very important.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's never for me, from my experience, it hasn't been like, oh, I feel guilty about charging. It's the self-doubt of, okay, can they not, they can figure out this on their own. Like they don't need my skills and my capabilities. Like surely they could do this on their own. And oftentimes, no, they can't
Yeah.
with this, why they're coming to me for my lived experience and the skills and the leadership that I have. And so again, just trusting in that and being secure in that.
You hit a nerve there with me of that. It takes me back to the I can do everything myself. Even when I was healing myself and trying to do all of the things, it was DIY so much until I got help. And when I got help, the expansion increased so significantly in my life that more people should realize how important it is to invest in yourself just to do the work for yourself, not for anyone else, but
Yeah.
to be able to get clear and come home to yourself and release all the things that you don't need to hold on to anymore, and learn how to live a life so you don't get to the end of it and wish you would have did something different.
Absolutely. I think if you're looking at it, we all invest in ourselves in some form or fashion, whether it's, taking care of our hair, getting a haircut,
Yes.
buying a new outfit, buying makeup, like, buying food. We are taking care of ourselves. But when it comes to really figuring out why we're here on this earth and reconnecting with yourself and figuring out what actually makes you happy and brings you joy, we don't even we don't do that. A lot of us don't do that. And it's
Mm,
easy just to go through the motions. But it takes courage to stop and ask those questions. And then it takes even more courage to act on it.
yes, yes. And you've done a lot of work, and as I have, but life still be lifing
Oh yeah.
sometimes. And there's always these moments when things are going to get hard again. And
Hmm.
sometimes you're like, oh, why am I doing all this? And you can want to give up or feel like,
Yeah.
well, it's just easier if I just go back to just doing what everyone tells me to do.
Yeah.
But when those moments come up, how do you remember? How do you get back to yourself and keep yourself from getting stuck in those moments?
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse once you see the life that you can live and performing at your highest peak and in all aspects of your life, it's hard to go back. And so on those really hard days, on those hard moments where I'm not listening to my body and I pushed myself too hard and I didn't stop to refill my own cup. Um, it's hard, but I know the peacefulness and
Mm,
the ease that life can be. And so I can't ignore that. So
mm,
it's a really quickly of taking stock of like, okay, have your moment of lowness, but you got to get back up and start fighting for the life that you want because you know how euphoric that feeling can be and you know how peaceful it is.
mm. I love that. And it's a remembering that if we didn't ever have those hard moments, we wouldn't know how good the good moments feel.
Absolutely.
So there's always that duality. And so I've learned to be grateful for the hard moments because they're reminding me that I'm in this life and things are going to come up, and I'm here and I have the tools, and like you said, I know there's another side. I know that this is just a valley and another peak is coming. And I know that when I'm in the valley, there's going to be some little silver lining, some little nugget, some little good blessing that's going to prepare me for the next level of that next peak.
Yeah, and that's something that I had to learn and that I'm unlocking currently because I used to see the valleys and the hardships as, a stain on my worth, or I
Mhm.
did something wrong, or I just took it very personally. And I would hang out in those valleys for a really long time. And, within the last 2 years, I've really been able to look at those valleys as lessons
Mhm.
and layers, right? They're layers on a cake. They're building up my life. Um, and everything happens for a reason. So just try to see the lesson within that valley. But yeah, that's something I definitely had to learn.
What was one of your lessons that 2023 gave you as we're starting out this new year? Is there a little golden nugget that you're taking with you into this new year from last year?
It is prioritizing that me time or that alone time, because life keeps showing me that if I do not get that rest, quality rest and sleep, and if I don't get that quality time for me to refill my energy to
Mhm.
pour into others, it is not pretty. And I think I've known that, but 2023 really was like, I will keep lifing at you until you make it a priority, Jennifer. So make it a priority. And going into 2024, those are the moments where I'm like, I have to prioritize these two things for me to feel whole and perform at my peak. Not only for myself, but for my family and my community. So prioritizing that is on the top of my to-do list.
Oh, yes. Rest is not optional. Though as
Yes.
much as we are programmed that you could put it off for a later date, it is definitely not optional.
Yeah, and it can look many different ways, right? It doesn't
Yes.
have to be extravagant. Like literally, if I can go into my closet, sit in the dark for 20 minutes and just lay there for a second and like be in my own thoughts. Sometimes that's all I need, right?
Yeah.
Other times it can be like a day away or something, but yeah, it's just 20 minutes sometimes is all I need.
Yeah, I love that. It's such a mom thing. If I could just hide in the closet
Oh, for
away
sure.
from everybody, I have a
My
peace of
closet
mind.
is my safe space, definitely. I just disappear for a second and it's just all I need. Just, because as a mom to two little kids and running your own business, people always want things from me, right? And I have
Yes.
to pour, continuously pour. And that quiet time for me is
Mhm.
just imperative.
Yeah, because you can't pour from an empty cup.
No, you can't.
And
Yeah.
and
I've
and
learned
we
that the hard way.
yeah, and we all recharge in different ways. Like you said, there's
Mhm.
there's many different ways. And one of my favorite ways to recharge is in the shower. Like let me wash
Yeah.
away everything and let the water reset my energy and my
Mm.
aura so I can get back out there. So I remember even when I'd be at big like conferences with our whole company back in my COO days, I would sneak up into a hotel in the middle of the day and take like a quick 5 minute shower just to regroup and fill my cup back up so I could go back out and pour. Because,
Yeah.
like you said, there's a lot of pouring going on, but if there's no filling, nobody's going to get anything.
No, like you said, life be life in at that point.
It definitely does. And as you talked a little bit about designing your day and learning how to make your focus be your day, I think that's a good segue into the rapid fire questions that I love to ask all my guests, because the first one is, what's currently your favorite part of the day?
Yeah, so my favorite part of the day is early, early morning
Mhm.
before the kids even wake up. My husband usually is like working out. We have a little gym set up in the garage. And that's a time where I can just slowly wake up and be in my own thoughts. I know my loved ones are, safe and protected, so I don't have to worry about
Mhm.
anybody. And that's just, again, whether it's 20 minutes or an hour early or before everybody wakes up, that's my favorite time to just be with myself.
I love that you said slowly wake up, because I remember all the years that I spent like alarm going off, loud, blaring alarm, phone, emails in bed, like instant chaos. In learning how to ease into your day can be a game changer.
Yeah, and it's for me, it's the little kids, right? Like, "Mommy," like, and jumping on me, and it's just like that, quick wake up. I was like, "Yeah, this doesn't, make me feel at peace,
Mm,
this doesn't make me feel aligned in the morning, so what do I need to do?" It's wake up earlier, unfortunately.
yes. But at least you fill your cup first, so that's important.
Yeah. Yes.
So what is your current cozy?
Ooh, that's a good question. Again, my girls are still little, so they're very much in the phase of like bedtime, like lay with me, cuddle with me. That is my favorite cozy, is
Mm.
just cuddling up next to them and feeling so utterly relaxed. I usually fall asleep with one of them, and that's my coziest part of the day.
Mm. And that's such a good cozy. I remember those days. My kids do not want to cuddle with me anymore. But once in a while, I get a good hug from my son, who's much bigger than me now.
Yeah.
And so we've talked a lot about taking care of ourselves, and you talk a lot about what it means to listen to your body. And one of the things that I like to ask people is, what's one thing that you're doing right now for your 80-year-old self?
Ooh, I love that question. For me, it's taking care of my physical health, and I lift weights. I
Mm.
lift heavy weights 3 or 4 times a week, and that's to me, that's all about building muscle mass. Just, building on that muscle as I age that's gonna keep me, stable and mobile for years to come. I think that's the best thing that I can do for my future self.
Mm. It's so true. As I'm taking care of my mom, who did not do much of taking care of herself or exercise or physical activity, I'm learning the truth in how important it is to not only lift weights as women for having the muscle strength, but keeping our bones strong and
Yeah.
keeping our hormones regulated and all of the things. So I think that's a very good practice. And I think we all should definitely pick up a few weights every day
Yes.
and keep ourselves strong. So my final question is, how do you remember to live?
Hmm. Again, it's taking stock. I look at my kids, I look at my beautiful husband, and I take a quick pulse check to see like how connected do we all feel to each other, and I can
Mm.
tell when my kids feel disconnected if my husband and I are, going through the motions or, head down in work. You can tell, you can feel.
Yeah.
So just by taking a daily stock or even weekly stock, that's how I remember to check my priorities.
Mm.
And I go back to, my life plan to say what's more important to me. And at the very top is family and my kids and the relationship I have with my husband. And that's how I remember to live the life in that moment, because it'll just slip away if I don't. So just taking daily stock.
Yes, because the moments are going to go by whether you show up to them or not.
Yeah.
And I want to show up to as many of the moments as I possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, thank you for sharing all your little nuggets of wisdom while you're still in the work, as we all are. The work never
Yes.
stops. But I would love for people to know how they could connect with you and find out more about the work that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to, personally connect with your audience. I feel like it'd be another soul connection. Some of the best people that I know right now, I just slide into their DMs. So slide into my DMs. You can find me online, Jennifer Yepez-Blundell on Instagram. And then I invite you to, explore Drafted, the Latina sports culture company that we're building at wearedrafted.co.
Hmm. Thank you again. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to the Remember to Live podcast. I hope you learned some things, laughed a little, and above all else, were inspired to live more fully. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and share with a few friends so we can all help each other remember to live.